Hey, sports cards fans, this is Ray from Philly here on this Wednesday, September 29th, and welcome to another episode of Sports Card Talk. This tonight is episode number 12. I'm going to first introduce my co-host, and then we're going to bring on our special guest for the evening. First, I'm going to introduce my co-host. This is Mike from This Baseball Card Life. Mike, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Ray.
Good to hear it. Well, we're back again, Mike. We got another great episode tonight, and we have a special guest with us tonight. This is Alex from Bowman53. We're going to be talking tonight about the 1953 Bowman color set. Alex, welcome aboard. How you doing tonight?
Hey, great. Thanks, Ray. Thanks, Mike. Thank you both for
Yeah,
having me on
Absolutely.
tonight. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're thrilled to learn about the Bowman 53 color set. It's a beautiful set. You've worked diligently on this set. We've followed you through the years
yeah,
on
Yeah.
YouTube
yeah.
building this set, which has been, just a piece of art. It's just been spectacular to watch this. So we're thrilled to get into it. We're going to dive right into it and let's get started. So let's go, Mike. Let's do it.
All right. So first, I don't know if all the viewers know a lot about 50s baseball. So I want to kind of go over the 52 season and then over a general overview of the 53 Bowman color set first, and then we'll get into questions for Alex.
Awesome.
So here we go. So the 1952 season, there were 154 game seasons, and the two winners of each league, played in the World Series. So that means there weren't things like wild card games, NLCS, NLDS, etc., stuff like that. So
Right.
there was only 16 teams total in Major League Baseball, and in 52, the Yankees beat the Dodgers in the World Series.
Right.
So this 53 Bowman color set, which was produced in Philly, where Ray's from, yay. This is how the set is broken down by team. So you can see there's the Philadelphia Athletics, who eventually moved out of Philly, and the Philadelphia Phillies both have 11 cards, so that makes sense. Also, New York and the Brooklyn Dodgers have a lot of cards since they were in the World Series. 1953 Bowman color set. There's 160 cards in it. 26 of them are Hall of Famers. And Bowman started in 48, and they had small cards even into 1952. So in 1953, they increased the size of their cards to compete with the larger cards that Topps made in 1952. So you can see the measurements are really, really close. And you have an example of one of the Bowman color cards, this awesome Mickey Mantle card. And you can see the beautiful color. Well, this is really the first year for these amazing photos in baseball cards. So this color photography was done using what was called Kodachrome film. And this is on the left is what this film looked like in the old cans when the film. This is pre-iPhone, remember? This is before digital. And I found a picture on Wikipedia of Franklin D. Roosevelt, one of the presidents in the USA. And this is him taken on Kodachrome film in 1944. So just beautiful photos.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So if you were alive in 1953 to buy cards, there were 5 cards per pack. You would get a piece of gum. And here's one of the boxes that you might see in the grocery store. So there's 24 packs in a box. And on the right is one of the wrappers that you would have seen. And lastly, I wanted to go over something I learned while prepping for this interview. And so for 50 years in baseball, so that was 1903 to 1952, there were 16 teams in like 10 cities across, the Major League Baseball landscape. But then on March 18th, 1953, the Boston Braves owner, this Lou Perini, I believe is how you say his last name, he moved the team to Milwaukee. So I figured this out because I was looking on the backs of all the cards in this set, and the Boston Braves all of a sudden changed to Milwaukee Braves. So you'll see if you look through the set, the first 3 cards say Boston Braves on the back, and after that, starting with Braves manager Charlie Grimm. You know, it shows Milwaukee Braves. So I thought that was really cool. And that's my quick introduction of the Bowman color set. So if Ray, you want to get started with questions?
Yeah, I mean that set was groundbreaking, you know, with the
Yeah.
color photography. I mean, it's a
Mm-hmm.
legendary set. So question number one, Alex, is why did you build this particular set? I mean, obviously to me, my reason is obvious. I love the color photography, but for why build this particular set over others?
Well, there's a bunch of reasons. I would say when you're picking a set, you want to think about the set as a whole, and you can look through any set that exists out there, and
Right.
it might have a handful of cards that you like, or maybe some key cards. But one of the pleasures of collecting an entire set is enjoying every single card in the set. And to me, and I'm a little biased, but I think this is like hands down the most consistent, most beautiful set ever put together. You know, other sets might be cool. They might have some great cards in it. But this set, like even the common cards in this set are just stunners. Like they make the most random player seem like a superstar. And to me, it's like, you know, I thought, okay, if I'm going to collect a set, I want something where I'm just as excited in the middle of collecting it as I am at the beginning. And every time I got a card in this set as I was building it, I was blown away by just how the cards look. I mean, you know, the other thing I could do is stop talking and just show some cards, right? Like if the cards speak for themselves. You know, if you go through this set from card number 1 to card number 160, every single card is just amazing.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of as simple as that.
The photography is just incredible. I mean, you showed one card one time. I want to say it was early wind, where you can actually see the sunset coming in, and it just illuminated the photography even more. So yeah.
Right. And you know, the other thing about the photography, it's like, you know, Mike mentioned the Kodachrome. That's a part of it. Another huge part of it was the guys that took those photographs were at the top of their game. A lot of them worked for like Life magazine, Sports Illustrated, National Geographic. So these were not like random photographers. These guys like were taking pictures of Marilyn Monroe and, you know, famous people. So they knew like the artistry of like composition and lighting and all that sort of thing. And, you know, like we have color photography today in baseball cards, but I still think some of these photographs, like here's another random player. This is George Shuba.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like this guy,
beautiful,
just amazing, right? So it's also the photographers as well.
Right.
Yeah. So how long did it take you from card 1 to completing this set?
Yeah, I think it was just about under 3 years or so.
That's great.
Yeah, and I mean one of the benefits of the set, I think, if you're interested in building one, is that it's only 160 cards. When you compare that to other sets, it's pretty small.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes people will still say though, like, "Wow, you did that in 3 years. That's not that much time." But what I usually respond is, "Well, it's all I was getting. Like that's all I was looking at for 3 years was that set. I wasn't getting anything else." So if you're doing that, it's not doesn't take that long to put together.
Yeah.
Sure. For me, I wanted to know, did you build the whole set by purchasing cards solely off of eBay, or a mix of different places and different places, venues?
Yeah. The majority of the cards were definitely off of eBay. And like I'm in Savannah, Georgia. There aren't a whole lot of card shows around here. No, you know, local card shops or anything. So most of it was on eBay. I did get a couple at the National last year in Chicago, and I think I got a handful like off of like a Facebook deal. But for the most part, everything was on eBay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So why did you decide to build the whole set graded?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because for a lot of people, that's kind of a crazy idea. And I agree. Like there's a lot of different ways to build a set. And you have to consider the pros and cons. You know, one thing to consider is like, okay, how big is the set? And, you know, are there like crazy expensive cards in the set and things like that? One one of the reasons I wanted to build the set was, again, because I think it's just absolutely gorgeous from top to bottom. So I kind of decided, all right, I want to get like a really nice, decent condition copy of every single card. And I wanted the assurance of grading for, making sure that it was authentic and that sort of thing.
Right.
But also because grading gives you some idea of value, which is harder to determine when it's raw. Now, saying those two things, I realized there's all kinds of scandals with trimming and that sort of thing. So, that is what it is. But I liked the idea of going after, like, especially with vintage, like just sticking with grading as the way to go.
Sure, absolutely. Would you like your set someday to have all the matching grade cases? If so, what grading company?
Yeah, I mean, everything is PSA. But in terms of the slabs, I mean, I've got stuff that's the most, the lighthouse holder, but I've also got some that are from like the early days of PSA and everything in between. Honestly, I don't really pay as much attention to that. I know some collectors do, but that's a level I haven't gotten to yet. Maybe someday, but I'm not even really paying attention to it too much.
Right.
As I'm collecting.
Yeah. So what are like 5 favorite cards that you have in a set?
That's
tough.
That's an evil question, Mike.
Well,
but it's a good question.
One. That's why I said 5. I didn't say just one.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing, ask any collector what their 5 favorite cards are. I'm sure it changes every day. And it's the same with this set. Like, I love the whole set, right? But all right, I picked out 5.
Nice.
And I tried to pick out like a random assortment. So a couple Hall of Famers. So here's Warren Spahn.
That's a nice one.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, the photographer is so smart, right? Like getting him to do his follow through, so you can see the Brave emblem on his sleeve there.
Just look at the colors on that, unbelievable.
Yeah, Eno Slaughter.
Yeah,
this is such a unique card. We're used to seeing guys in stadiums. We don't see guys on beaches very often. In baseball cards, at least it looks like he's on a beach, and you can see some like palm trees in the background. Let's see. Here's Luke Easter. Just a great pose. And a lot of the most of the American League photographs were taken in Yankee Stadium, and the National League photographs were taken in the Polo Grounds, just because the photographers were mostly based out in New York, so it was a lot easier for them to do it that way. Here's Walter Hoot Evers. Unless you're interested in 50s baseball, you might not even know who this is, but doesn't this guy look like, don't you wish that some rookie cards looked like this?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an incredible pose, an incredible card with Yankee Stadium in the background. And then, of course, last but not least, right, had to show this one.
Yeah, of course.
I love that card.
Yeah, it's hard to beat this card. I mean, even people that are not into vintage know this card. So
that is just an awesome card.
Yeah. So there's my 5. But again, like, ask me in 5 minutes, it's going to be a different bunch.
Right. What were the hardest cards to find when you were doing this journey?
That's a good question. Some of it was surprising, but generally with vintage, everybody knows that the high numbers tend to be harder to get, and usually it's because they were printed later in the year. People aren't as interested in collecting in the end of the summer or fall, and maybe they don't print as many. And that's kind of true for this set. But I actually, if you really get into the weeds, and I can really get into the weeds with this set, every sheet contained, I think, like 32 cards. It turns out that the 4th uncut sheet, when these originally were printed, was the sheet that ended up getting printed the least and also had the most damage. And so that means cards 97 to like 128 or so, those cards are actually the most scarce, because like they would get ruined, or like black ink would get splattered all over them. So sometimes they didn't even like leave the factory, they would just pitch them. And as a result, like any cards from that sheet tend to be harder to get, or more expensive, I guess, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you kind of led me into this next question I have, like card printing errors. Did you notice any common, well, there's like always an ink dot on this part of this card and all of
Oh
them?
yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of quirky problems. And it's the kind of thing where when you're collecting a set, you don't necessarily know all of this at first. But, Mike, you know this, and I'm sure Ray, you know this too. Like
Yeah.
when you're looking at the same cards over and over on eBay,
Mhm.
without even meaning to, you start to learn a lot about that card. Every one of these cards that I have, I probably saw like hundreds of examples, and you start to realize, oh, this problem I'm seeing is showing up on card after card. So I have an example here. This is a Harry Simpson card,
Mhm.
and I discovered, and anybody that collects this set knows this, there's a little dot right next to his face right here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you'll be hard pressed to find a card that does not have that dot.
Okay.
And now that might seem like, wow, does that really matter? I mean, I guess it doesn't, but when you're collecting a set, that stuff starts to become like ingrained in your head.
Yeah.
You just notice all that stuff. So there's there's print defects. There's a lot of print lines that you'll see. And this set is really notorious for centering. I mean, a lot of vintage sets have centering issues.
Oh yeah.
For me, I think this set has problems probably because there's nothing to distract your eye. Like you don't see any names or logos or anything on the card. It's just the photograph.
Right.
So the borders stand out much more than they do on other
Oh,
cards.
yeah.
And
Right.
that means you're going to notice the centering. So for example, this is a card that is always off center. So when I found this Yogi Berra, I was thrilled because it's pretty decent considering.
Yeah.
But a lot of times this one's way off.
Right. Which leads me to my next question. If you wanted to build a second 53 Bowman set, what would you change different about? Anything different in your approach?
Yeah, I mean, when you're collecting, especially because like when I started collecting this set, I hadn't collected since I was a kid.
Mhm.
And when you're collecting as a kid, you're not thinking about all the stuff that we're thinking about now. Like I
Right.
would get some cards at the store and put them in a binder and move on. But like now it's like, okay, what's grading, and how much money should I be spending, and what's a good deal, and all that stuff. So when I first started the set, I would say probably like the first 3 or 4 cards that I bought, I was looking for good condition, but I didn't know what I was doing. And I'll be honest with everybody that's watching. I made a really stupid mistake. I was going after like 7s and 8s, and these were like common cards.
Right.
And I'm getting them in. I'm like, oh, these look great. And then I'm thinking, okay, how much did I spend on these? I'm not going to be able to build this set. Like it's going to take way too long. So then, I realized, okay, well, maybe I can like look for like 4s and 5s,
Right.
and get them at better deals and find them in good condition. It's going to take a little patience, but I think I got pretty good at that.
Mhm.
And so I learned from my mistake. Sometimes you make mistakes in this hobby, but
Oh yeah, we all do.
fortunately it wasn't like a super expensive mistake.
Right.
And I caught it pretty early. So I don't know if I would say that that's something I would do over. This would be a fun set to collect raw though, like just get some nice well-worn cards and put them in a binder.
In a binder, they would look beautiful in a binder.
Yeah, definitely.
Without a doubt.
For sure.
So what advice would you give someone, say they're really inspired to, go on eBay here in 5 minutes and start buying some cards? Like what advice would you give this person on looking to start this set?
Yeah, well, I would say if you're in that boat, you're not going to regret it. You've made a good choice. Every card in this set is so much fun to get, and you'll enjoy the whole process. I would say take your time with it and get to know the cards. I'm a huge believer in saved searches and just looking at those saved searches. When I was collecting the set, I was looking through my saved searches several times a day, every day. And, I looked through hundreds of every example, and you get to know the card, you get to know the condition, and then a good deal when you see one. And however you decide to collect it, the other thing I would say is enjoy the card. Like look up the player when you get it and learn about the player and learn about his career and, you know, who did he play with and what were his stats and what kind of interesting stat does he still hold, like record wise, or a lot of these guys were in World War II. Like, you're going to learn so much more about like 50s baseball. When I started the set, like I knew who Mickey Mantle was and I know Willie Mays, but now at the end of this set, like my knowledge of 50s baseball is through the roof just because of collecting all these cards. So that's to me, that's part of the fun too.
Yeah. And how have you enjoyed your collection now that the chase to get all 160 cards is complete?
Yeah. You know, we were talking about this a little bit before we started. It was fun and thrilling to finish it. And it was also kind of like, well, man, what do I do now? Having like every collector needs a goal, right? And this was a nice goal to have, and I was motivated to finish it the whole time. When it was done, I think, you know, it was sort of like, okay, I got to move in a new direction. But looking back on it, the cool thing that happened was, like I said, the 50s baseball knowledge and all of that. But also, when I first started the set, I didn't even have a YouTube channel yet, which is kind of crazy to think about. And now at the end of the set, it was like, wow, like I was making all these videos and little by little getting to know people in the community, realizing that there was a community at all in the first place. And by the end of it, it was like, wow, I'm so glad I met all these people and I have all these associations with the set now that I was so surprised. So in the end, although it sounds a little cheesy, it's like, wow, it's not just the baseball cards. It's like all these friends that I've made and like these experiences I've had. And like now the set, like it's not just the monetary value. It's like, wow, like I'm really proud of the set. And like it has all these great memories attached to it too. So
you can't change your name now. I mean, if you go on,
I know. Like
if you want to do a 33 Gaudy set, you're done. You can't. You're Bowman53.
It's fine. I'm proud. I'm proud to own that thing. You know, it's like that's totally fine with me. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. All right. So, what about any like books or articles or websites that like really helped you learn about this set, or you just figured out or discovered these books or websites while you were building it? What are some of those?
Yeah. I'll say this, and it's kind of a downer, but you know, I really, like I said before, I like to get into the weeds with this stuff because to me that's part of the fun of like of collecting is like learning all the little nitty gritty things. There isn't a lot out there, and what you'll find is pretty basic, kind of an overview kind of thing. You know, a lot of sites will mention it. Everybody, you know, likes to talk about it being one of the most famous sets and one of the most beautiful sets, but there's not a lot of detail. And when I have gotten into it, it's like really hard to find a lot of information. I've gone into forums and met people that like used to work at Bowman and stuff like that. Like that's how far down you have to go. But I think one of the reasons that it's so hard to find information is because, you know, in the 50s, it was like Bowman versus Topps, right? And when you have a war, whoever wins the war is the one that gets to tell all the stories. So Bowman lost and Topps won. So nobody's around to tell the Bowman story. So everybody knows that the Bowman cards are cool, but there really isn't a definitive like resource for Bowman cards. And certainly not for this set. And, you know, maybe we should all write a book or like, you know, make a documentary. But yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot out there that does it justice. But I will say on a more positive note, besides myself, there's a ton of people that collect this set on YouTube. You know, Joey Brings It comes to mind, and a few other YouTubers that love this set. And that's where I got a lot of, you know, my start is like watching other YouTubers. And, you know, when you're trying to collect a set, somebody out there is collecting it and you can connect with them and talk about it.
Right. Is there any particular card that has an interesting story to it, a crazy story to it? The player has a crazy story or the card itself?
Yeah, I thought about this one, and there's a really good go-to. So so this is Al Corwin common card, played for the New York Giants. And this is also Al Corwin of the New York Giants.
Yeah.
So this is the only time in the set where there are two single cards of the same player. And there's a lot of different theories as to why that happened. You know, some people say like, well, there was originally a spot open for one of the players that ended up getting pulled out of the set. Maybe they had a contract dispute, or they were only tops, like, you know, maybe it was Willie Mays or somebody like that. And so they just filled it real quick with another Al Corwin picture, and they hoped nobody would notice.
Right.
And maybe it was in a different series, you know, released later in the summer, so it wouldn't have been an issue. I do think that it's possible, because they don't actually have information on the card, that they just made a mistake and they didn't realize it was the same guy, because it doesn't necessarily look like the same person. And when they realized it, they may have fixed it on the back. I'm not sure, but it's kind of funny that there's two of the same. Like, why couldn't it have been like Mickey Mantle? You know, why couldn't they have made like two Stan Musial cards or something like that? That would have been a better mistake.
So other than the numbers on the back of those cards, are they identical, like the stats and everything, all the words?
Oh, good question. As memory serves, they are exactly the same. But I do think there might have been a mistake on one that was corrected on another. But they're essentially the same. Yeah.
Other than the card number. Okay.
Other than the card number, correct.
So how about players that you would have loved to have seen in the set that are missing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, obviously Williams, Willie Mays, Satchel Paige, Jackie Robinson. I mean, even Al Kaline, who would have come up in 53, I think it is. He doesn't have a card. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think if those cards were in this set, it would be sort of like the Undisputed King.
Oh my God.
But I also think what's kind of interesting about that is, like, when you look at the set, the first question you ask is, wait, where's the Jackie Robinson? Where's the Willie Mays? And that gets you going to look into the history, like what happened. And then suddenly you open up this whole world of like what happened in 50s baseball and what happened with baseball cards and the businesses and the competition between those two companies. And I think that's a kind of cool story. And most of us learn that because we ask that question. It's like, where's Jackie Robinson?
Right.
So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. There's one of the cards which you already showed earlier, which is one of my all-time favorites, is that Pee Wee Reese card. What's the story with that card? How did they do? That's like the first action shot in baseball cards. How did they? That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, this was the card that kind of put me over the edge when I was debating it. I was like, okay, I'm going to go for this set, and I decided to go after this card last, which I think for anybody that builds a set, to me that was a fun idea. It's like, for me, I was like, I don't want the random card to be the last card. I'd like the last card to be like kind of a celebratory card. So it was this one for me. The story is that this was a spring training photograph. Which you can kind of tell is like, that does not look like Brooklyn back there.
No, not at all.
And also the guy that's kind of taking a nap on second base there is a Dodgers coach, I think. And it was actually a black and white photograph that they colored for the set. And I'll tell you a really interesting story. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying before, like, about information about this set. A lot of people don't know this. There were actually meant to be more horizontal cards in the set that were in the same design as this one,
right?
That never got released. And I've seen one of them, and it was at auction, like, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. It was I think it's called Dodgers in Action. Okay. And it's like an overhead shot of home plate. And I don't remember who it is, but they're like sliding into home plate and you can see the catcher and the umpire. And it looks similar to this one in terms of style. There were like 3 or 4 others that they were considering for the set, and they decided not to do it for whatever reason. So this was the only one they did. But like, that's incredible to me. It's like, oh my gosh, you mean there are more cards that nobody's ever seen? But I think it's also kind of cool that if they're going to do one, like it's cool that it's this one, and
Right.
it really stands out. It's the only horizontal one in the set.
It's an iconic card. You can use that word for that card because it really is. And,
it is. It is. And I mean, if you're going to get a card from this set, to me, like that's the one to get.
Yeah. Yeah. I also like the Stan Musial card too. That's
yeah, for sure. I've got that in here somewhere. Let's pull it out.
I have old magazines from the early 80s, and on the front covers, I always see that. There it is. I always see that 53 Bowman color Stan the Man. Beautiful card.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that, this is like later in Stan's career, right? And he's like, I don't need to do a batting pose. Everybody knows I'm Stan Man. Like I can just kind of hang out in the dugout. Like I've earned my stripes. So
yeah.
And I've got to show this one. I don't think I've shown this one yet, so everybody needs to see.
Oh my God, yes. So, awesome.
Yeah.
Did you get that in the beginning, middle, or towards the end of your journey?
This card I got at the National in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Which was fun. It was a fun way to mark the trip there, and it was fun kind of going around. I actually had a lot of YouTubers helping me, looking around, trying to find the right copy. So again, like just fun memories of hanging out with people and looking at cards. So
right. So now that this is over, what's your next? Do you want to delve into what your next project is? I see you're doing a lot of pre-war now, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, it took a long time to kind of figure it out, and I'm still figuring it out. But yeah, I'm slowly looking at other stuff. When you don't have that direction, it's sort of like, wow, what am I going to do? So I've got like a list of cards that I'm considering, and a lot of it's pre-war, but there's some stuff from the 50s and 60s too. I mean, it's to me like some of the cards made in the 50s are the best cards ever made, and I gotta go beyond the 53 set now. So I'm looking at other stuff, and we'll see what happens. I'm taking my time with it though, and just trying to be real selective. And so it's a lot of pre-war, but a little bit of 50s and 60s stuff too.
Oh, well, we'll look forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
All right, Ray. Well, I think we finished all our questions.
Yeah, this was great.
Yeah, this was really awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Thank you both for having me on. This was a lot of fun. And anybody out there, that's interested in collecting this set, you won't be disappointed. As I said before, it's fun every step of the way.
Well, that was great. Thanks again, Alex, for joining us tonight. And everyone, don't forget to check out Bowman53. Look at all the videos that he's done for the past few years. Look at the journey of the 53 Bowman color set. Just a breathtaking, beautiful, graded set that Alex has completed. So, Alex, once again, thanks for coming on with us tonight. Mike, I will see you soon, buddy.
All right. It's gonna be
and thanks, everyone, for tuning in.